You are enough. Yes, you. You are enough right now as you are. And I know this phrase is often thrown around. It's kind of in that same category as other useless mental health phrases like, oh, just smile, be positive. You are enough. But this one has a little bit of truth to it. I don't mean it just as some soulless kind of empty encouragement that won't actually do anything. I mean that you are enough as you are, regardless of the feelings that you struggle with, regardless of the mental health issues that you have. You're enough as you are. This kind of shameless self-acceptance is so important in our mental health journeys, so I want to talk about it today. My name is Ethan Jewell, and welcome back to Feel Your Feelings. I remember when I was in my deepest, darkest struggle with my mental health, I would hear these little phrases like, you are enough, and I would roll my eyes. I would go, what are you talking about? Of course I'm not enough. Look at this struggle. Look at this. I couldn't get out of bed this morning. I cried 5 times yesterday. Of course I'm not enough. I'm not getting enough done. But that's the problem. I wasn't just accepting myself how I was thinking that I needed to prove my existence. I literally needed to prove to both the world and to myself that I was allowed to just exist. And that is a dangerous trap. So if you have struggled with this, you're in the right place. Thank you so much for joining me to feel your feelings. So first, I want to talk about a common lie that we tell ourselves whenever we're struggling with this lack of self-acceptance, whenever we're struggling with the feeling of not being enough. And the lie is, I'll be enough when. That when is so dangerous because it tells you that right now there's something wrong with you. There's something that needs to be fixed in order for you to exist as a person. And that's just not true. You know, we say, I'll be enough when I get this promotion, or maybe just on a more basic level, I'll be enough when I get happy. I'll be enough when I stop struggling. And the truth is, the struggle may always be there. You know, I don't think there's going to be a world where I don't struggle with bouts of depression, but I know that that doesn't change my worth as a person. I can be depressed and still be worthy. I can be depressed and still be enough. I can have bad days and still love myself, and that is such an important thing to remember. It's never I'll be enough when. It's I am enough. And I will also push myself to achieve these things because I accept myself and I love myself enough to try to get better. Don't improve out of guilt. Don't try to improve out of some invisible, set of requirements to be enough. You are enough. You just have to believe it. We are all enough. You have to change your mindset. Worth is not conditional. There's no conditions, there's no terms and conditions that you need to read through and agree to in order to be enough, in order to accept yourself. See, the reality is there is no conditions. Your struggles, they don't define your worth. When you struggle with your mental health, you don't become less valuable. A lot of people think, oh, I'm broken. They think of it almost like an object. Oh, I'm broken, I broke this object, now it's worth less. That's just not the case. We are deep and complicated emotional creatures that are supposed to sometimes feel bad, A good day will just be a day if you only experience happiness. And a helping hand will just be a hand if you only experience happiness. So without these struggles, you are not a full person. In order to be a person, you have to struggle sometimes, and it sucks. I wish I could say that we could just all be happy all the time, but we have to struggle, and those struggles do not define your worth. A cloudy sky does not mean that the sun is gone. When you look up at the sky and you see clouds, you don't think, oh my God, the sun exploded and there's never going to be daylight ever again. No, you think, oh, there's a cloud covering the sun. It'll pass. So why don't you think of your mental health the same way? When you're struggling, when you have a cloud over your head, when you have a hard, cloudy day, why don't you think, oh, I'm having a difficult day. This too will pass, and it doesn't define you. It doesn't define you as being stuck in darkness forever. It doesn't define you as not being enough. It just is a difficult moment. That's something we have to accept in our mental health journey. We are enough. Our struggles do not define us. You are worth more than just your mental health struggles. So in order to reach this level of knowing that we're enough, in order to reach this self-acceptance, we have to embrace all parts of ourselves. And that means, welcoming all emotions, not just the pleasant ones. And I've preached this for forever. The name of this podcast is literally Feel Your Feelings, because I wanted people to be encouraged to feel all of their feelings. It's just an all-encompassing feelings, because you have to feel the good. Yes, you have to feel happy, you have to feel joy, you have to feel excitement, but you have to feel the bad. And I will continue to preach that all the time to anyone who will listen. So it is so important to practice self-acceptance. And a great way to do this is through self-compassion. So when you're struggling, instead of talking down on yourself, instead of saying, I'm not enough, I shouldn't be feeling this, instead practice the same compassion that you would practice with a friend who's struggling. If you have a friend who's dealing with a bout of depression and they can't get out of bed, you wouldn't tell them, what's wrong with you? You're not worth anything. You're worthless. Just get out of bed, you idiot. You wouldn't say that to them. So why do you say the same thing to yourself? Why is your story so much more destructive than the story that you tell other people? It's because you don't have that self-acceptance. It's because you don't believe that you're enough when you always have been. So how can you extend that same kindness to yourself? That's what we have to figure out. And there's really no blanket way to do that. I can tell you to be compassionate to yourself, but that won't happen unless you practice it in person. So just try to be aware of that and try to remember in those moments that you're maybe talking to a friend. So there's some simple, actionable ways to start embracing being enough. Challenge that negative self-talk. When you think I'm not enough, ask, who told me that? Why am I telling myself this story? Why is this my narrative right now? Challenge it. Challenge that directly. Celebrate those small wins. When you get out of bed, when you reach out to a friend, when you take care of yourself, these are wins. They're small wins, yes, but they're wins, and they're practice. They're practicing towards bigger wins, and they're practice towards believing that you're enough. When you care for yourself, when you practice self-care, you are showing yourself that you're enough and that you love yourself. When you're kind to yourself, you're showing yourself that you're enough. You're showing yourself that you care, and that is so important when we're growing with our mental health, when we're trying to find our way out of a mental health struggle. That is so important. So treat yourself with that same patience that you would offer a friend. Treat yourself with that same love you would offer a friend, because you are enough. No matter where you are, no matter what you feel, no matter how much you struggle, you are enough. I remember there was a time when that was all I wanted to hear, that I was enough. I remember sitting in bed thinking, man, there's something really wrong with me. I'm not perfect. I need to be better. Healing is not perfection. It's about showing up for yourself. It took me years to realize I was supposed to show up for myself. And when I did, when I started being consistent, when I started accepting that I was enough, when I started showing myself self-acceptance, self-compassion, everything changed. You deserve that same acceptance. You deserve that same compassion. You deserve to know that you are enough. This is a little odd, but I would like to end this episode with a poem. This is one of my favorite poems. It goes like this. I like it when it gets difficult. I like it when my heart becomes so heavy that I need help carrying it. I like it when I'm human, when I'm weak, when I blister, because a callus means you've been touched by 1,000 lives. A shell means you're capable of surviving. A cold exterior means there's something warm to protect. I hold so much love inside. I like it when I'm tender, when I'm soft and sweet. I like it when waves crash. It reminds me. Although this life may hold much pain, I am capable of carrying, and I'm more than enough. and you are more than enough. Thank you so much for being here. I'm trying kind of a new format. I really appreciate y'all being here, for joining me, for feeling your feelings with me. As always, you can shoot me a DM on my Instagram at jewelboy with an I _. Let me know what you thought about today's episode. Also, if you need help feeling your feelings, you should check out my music on all platforms under the name of Ethan Jewell. I almost guarantee it'll make you cry. Also, that poem was from my poetry book, which is available on my website, ethanjewell.com. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for understanding that you are enough. And as always, thank you for feeling your feelings. I'll see you next time.